This happened a couple of years ago. I was 35 and feeling lost after some big losses in my life. I wanted to reconnect with nature, so I decided to go camping alone in a remote part of the national forest. I had camped before, but I wasn't what you would call an expert. I thought the quiet would help me think things through. I've never stopped thinking about what happened. It was peaceful when I first set up camp. The trees were tall, and the calm lake nearby made it feel perfect. I cooked a simple dinner and watched the sun set. As night fell, the woods grew darker. The only light came from my campfire. That's when I heard a faint rustling outside my tent. I told myself it was just a deer. I picked up my flashlight and shined it around, but didn't see anything. I put the flashlight down and tried to sleep, but something felt wrong. At midnight, I heard something again. Footsteps, maybe? My heart started to race. I listened closely, but all I could hear was my own breathing. It felt like the woods were holding their breath. Everything went quiet, no crickets, no birds. I decided to get out of the tent and check. I stepped outside, and my skin prickled. It felt like someone was watching me from the shadows. I scanned the trees but saw nothing. I went back inside, feeling uneasy. The second night, I sat by the fire. Just me and the flames. I tried to shake off the unease from the night before, but I couldn't. I swear I saw shadows flickering just beyond the firelight. I blinked, and they disappeared. Maybe it was just my mind playing tricks. But I felt it again, like someone was standing just out of sight. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. The next morning, I found strange markings on the tree trunks around my campsite. They looked like scratches or carvings, something I couldn't explain. I felt my stomach drop. I started to pack my things, wanting to leave, but I hesitated. I told myself I was just being paranoid. Yet, each passing moment made me feel more exposed, like I was being followed through the woods. I could never shake that feeling. When I finally left, I felt relief mixed with confusion. Were the shadows real, or was it all in my head? What about those markings? What did they mean? Those weeks turned into months, and now, here I am, haunted by those questions. The memories of that camping trip linger like a whisper in my mind. They remind me that maybe some things in the woods are better left undiscovered. So, I often wonder, was I really alone out there? The months passed, but the memory of that camping trip still haunted me. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was out there, beyond the trees. I tried to move on, but my thoughts would often drift back to the forest, especially when I went to bed at night. I had dreams filled with shadows and whispers, leaving me restless and anxious. One evening, I decided to revisit the site. It was a rash decision, but I needed closure. I packed my bag, determined to face whatever I'd left behind. As I drove deeper into the national forest, I felt the weight of memories pressing down on me. The trees lined the road like sentinels, and the air grew thick with unease. When I arrived, the familiar clearing looked eerie in the light of day. The campsite was just as I had left it. I could almost hear the echoes of that second night, the flickering shadows just beyond the firelight. I unpacked my gear and set up camp, trying to convince myself that I was being silly. I even laughed nervously at the thought. As the sun began to set, I sat by the lake, watching the colors change in the water. I felt a sense of calm wash over me, but it didn't last. Just as darkness fell, I noticed something on the trees again, those same strange markings from before, deeper and more pronounced. My heart sank. I hadn't imagined them. Had they been there all along? I got up to inspect them more closely. That's when I heard a low, guttural noise coming from deeper within the woods. It sent a chill down my spine. I froze, straining to listen, but the forest was silent except for that eerie sound. Was it an animal? My instincts screamed at me to leave, but I had come here for answers, not to run away. I gathered my courage and stepped toward the source of the noise. Each crack of a twig beneath my feet felt amplified in the quiet surroundings. My flashlight beam danced around the trees, illuminating parts of the darkness. Then I saw it a flicker of movement that vanished behind a thick trunk. My breath caught in my throat and I called out, "Hello? Is someone there?" My voice wavered, and for a moment, I regretted breaking the silence. There was no response, just the sound of leaves rustling in the wind. I wanted to believe it was just a deer or some other animal, but my gut told me otherwise. I retreated back to my campsite, heart racing and thoughts spiraling. I tried to reassure myself, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. My instincts were screaming to leave, but fear kept me frozen in place. I lit the campfire, its warmth felt like a shield against the darkness. As I sat there, I realized it was no longer just shadows I was afraid of. Something was lurking out there, something that might know I was there. I had to know what it was. Just as I was about to convince myself to pack up and leave, a distant, haunting scream echoed through the night. It was close, then everything went completely silent. The silence felt deafening. I strained to hear any sound, but only the crackle of my campfire filled the void. My heart thumped loudly in my chest, its rhythm echoing in the stillness. I tried to convince myself it was just an animal passing through, just the wind playing tricks, but I couldn't shake the primal fear gnawing at my gut. I poked at the fire, trying to focus on the flames instead of the shadows closing in around me. It helped for a moment, until I heard it again, a rustling, closer this time. I turned my flashlight toward the noise, its beam cutting through the darkness, but nothing was there. Just trees, stretching endlessly into the night. I stood up, my hands trembling. I couldn't just sit there and wait. I needed to move. I grabbed the flashlight and decided to inspect the area, even though every rational part of me screamed against it. If something was out there, lurking, I wouldn't let fear keep me confined to my campsite. I stepped cautiously into the darkness, the beam of my flashlight creating a small bubble of light ahead. Each step felt like a gamble, a silent plea for safety with each crack of twigs beneath my feet. The trees towered over me like silent giants, their branches reaching down as if trying to pull me into the shadows. Then, I saw something, a shape, barely discernible, just off the path. I caught my breath. It was roughly humanoid, but too distorted and misshapen. Its back was turned toward me, and it stood perfectly still. The air thickened around me as if my breath was being stolen. I couldn't tell if my heart was racing from fear or the overwhelming urge to turn and run. "Hey!" I called out, my voice shaking. "What are you doing?" I felt foolish the moment the words left my mouth. The figure didn't respond, it only shivered slightly, then vanished into the trees. Panic surged through me. It was as if it never existed at all. I backed away slowly, ready to sprint back to the campsite. It felt like I was in a dream, limb heavy and mind racing. Just as I was about to turn, I heard the voice again, a low, guttural hiss slithering through the trees. It was the same sound I had heard before, but now it felt far more ominous, targeted. I bolted, darting back towards the firelight, praying I wouldn't trip. My legs pumped faster, fueled by adrenaline and sheer terror. When I reached my campsite, I stumbled but caught myself, scrambling to reach the fire. I turned and faced the tree line, my chest heaving. The area was still, but I could feel that sense of something watching me intensify. I could almost hear it breathing, lurking just out of sight. I grabbed a stick from the fire and held it like a weapon, my knuckles turning white around it. I desperately scanned the perimeter, searching for any sign of movement. Then I heard it again, a rustle, then a whisper. Not a direct voice, just a sound that sent ice through my veins. I couldn't make it out, but it felt like a question. I had to know what it was. Gripping the fire stick, I edged closer to the edge of the light, daring to step beyond the flickering glow. When I saw them, more markings on the trees, but now they looked fresher, like something had recently carved them. And at the center of the biggest one stood a small, dark figure. I squinted, but the beam from my flashlight flickered and died. The darkness surged forward, swallowing me whole. I blinked, trying to adjust to the sudden darkness. My heart raced. The flashlight was dead, and I was left with nothing but the dim glow of the campfire behind me. I cursed under my breath, impatience mixing with fear. I could still feel the presence looming in the darkness, even if I couldn't see it. The rustle from before echoed in my mind. I could almost hear it again, a whisper weaving through the trees. Was it calling me? I couldn't tell. Panic clawed at my throat. I needed to get my flashlight working again, but the only other thing I could see was the fire. I rushed back, hoping to find some way to light my way again. When I reached my gear, I fumbled through my pack, my hands shaking. I found the spare batteries and hurriedly replaced the dead ones. Each second stretched long as I prayed to the universe that this would work. Finally, I clicked the switch. The beam shot back to life, illuminating the campsite. Relief washed over me momentarily, but that relief was short-lived. As I scanned the edges of the dark woods, I noticed the markings on the trees were even clearer now, faded lines carved into the bark, symbols I didn't recognize but felt dreadfully wrong. They pulsed with an eerie energy, like they held secrets deep within. That I stepped closer, curiosity battling with fear. Each symbol seemed to hold a history, stories of those who might have come before me. What were they warning me about? As I examined them, a chill ran down my spine. Maybe I shouldn't have looked too closely. That S when I heard it, a soft crunch of leaves, shifting behind me. I spun around, my breath catching. There it was again, a slight movement in the trees, but nothing emerged. Just shadows, stretching and blending like thick fog consuming the night. I wanted to call out, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I forced myself to listen, muscles taut. Suddenly, a shriek pierced the silence, vibrant and sharp. It echoed from deeper within the forest, sending every hair on my body standing on end. Whatever made that sound, it was not of this world. I stumbled back, barely catching myself. The terror that gripped me now felt tangible, as if it could reach out and drag me into the dark. That I didn't want to stay in this haunted place anymore. With no plan but to get out, I grabbed my belongings and prepared to leave. Just as I turned to head down the path I'd taken earlier, I paused. A flicker of movement caught my eye again, the same distorted figure, now even closer than before. I felt its gaze, heavy and unyielding. In that moment, I realized I wasn't alone. It wasn't just watching me, it was waiting. I bolted, adrenaline surging through my veins, propelling me forward. Each step felt frantic as I raced away from the campsite and deeper into the woods. Panic took over, fueling my flight. As I ran, I could feel the darkness pressing in around me, the trees whispering secrets I was not meant to know. I didn't dare turn back. But then, just as abruptly as the chase began, everything went silent. The forest felt oppressive, stifling in its stillness, and the weight of the absence knocked my breath away. I stopped, confused and terrified. Then I realized something was following me, lurking behind me, but nothing was there. Just the faint echo of my own heartbeat, a reminder that whatever haunted these woods was still very much present. I wasn't just running from it, I was running towards something I had yet to understand. The silence felt thick, as if the woods were holding their breath. I stood frozen, my senses on high alert. Each rustle of the leaves seemed amplified now, normal forest sounds twisted into something sinister. My heart pounded in my ears, drowning out everything else. I was hyper-aware. Every shadow stretched unnaturally, every chill in the air was a warning. Then, as if on cue, a low growl emerged from the darkness. It was guttural and primal, sending shivers racing down my spine. The fear that had momentarily lessened returned in full force, eclipsing any rational thought. I needed to move. With nowhere to go, I turned down a narrow path that wound between the trees, hoping for a sanctuary that was overrun by whatever vague terror had come alive in the night. The flashlight beam sliced through the darkness, but it felt weak compared to the vast black surrounding me. I focused on the ground ahead, picking my way over roots and rocks, each sound making it harder to breathe. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see that figure lurking closer. Nothing but shadows greeted me. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being drawn towards something, not just fleeing. After what felt like an eternity, I stumbled upon a clearing. The moonlight spilled in, casting an ethereal glow that made everything seem almost beautiful. But even that comfort was deceptive. In the center of the clearing, I saw an old stone altar, its surface etched with more of those dreadful symbols from before. They glimmered faintly in the moonlight, a language I couldn't decipher but felt instinctively was linked to whatever presence had followed me. That I approached slowly, drawn in by curiosity despite the fear gnawing at me. As I got nearer, a sense of urgency washed over me. It was as if the altar was pulsating, thrumming with the energy from the forest around it. What was this place? I wanted answers, but deep inside, I knew there's no safety in knowledge if it meant awakening something dormant. When I noticed something else on the altar. A small object lay half buried among the leaves. I leaned down, brushing the dirt away. It was a charm, made from what looked like bone, adorned with the same symbols carved into the trees. A chill raced through me. Did this belong to someone else who had wandered here? Had they met the same fate I feared awaited me? As I pulled it from the ground, the growl returned, louder and more insistent. The sound reverberated through the clearing, shaking the air. My pulse quickened. I took a hesitant step back. The token felt like it was burning in my hand, and that instinctual sense of being watched surged again. I turned to run, but before I could take another step, a figure broke through the tree line, partially obscured in shadows. I froze. There it was, the shape I had seen earlier, only now it was fully formed and unmistakable. Its eyes glowed fiercely in the night, fixated on me. Panic surged anew, but my body wouldn't respond. I felt trapped between fear and the urge to flee. I realized I had awakened something that was never meant to be disturbed. The truth hit me hard. I had to make a choice, and fast. Just as I summoned enough courage to scream, the clearing started to spin. Everything went dark again. When I finally regained consciousness, I was lying on the damp forest floor. The cool earth pressed against my back, and my head throbbed. Panic surged through me as I bolted upright. The clearing was empty. The altar was still there, but the figure had vanished. I looked around frantically, searching for any sign of movement. The silence was deafening, only the whispering wind in the trees to keep me company. That I barely had time to catch my breath before a fresh wave of nausea rolled through me. I felt disoriented and vulnerable, my mind racing to fill in the blanks of what had just happened. The charm was still clutched tightly in my hand, the symbols now seeming to pulse faintly as if echoing my own heartbeat. Maybe it was just a trick of my mind, but I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever that growl meant, it wasn't far away. Forcing myself to my feet, I glanced around again. The shadows were longer now as the moon dipped below the trees, casting an eerie twilight atmosphere across the clearing. I needed to find a way out of here. I had to. That growl lingered in my ears, a haunting reminder that I wasn't alone. I stepped away from the altar, still feeling drawn to it, but I knew better than to linger. But as I turned to retrace my steps through the path, I noticed a figure emerging from the trees way too tall and too elongated. My heart sank. It wasn't the same figure as before, this was something else entirely, something darker. The figure moved fluidly, gliding over the forest floor as if it were part of the shadows themselves. I panicked again, adrenaline surging. The growl echoed in the distance again, closer this time, and I bolted in the opposite direction. Branches scratched at my arms and legs as I ran, tearing through the underbrush. I didn't stop to listen, didn't look back. I just hoped to find a way out, somewhere more open where I could get my bearings. But the deeper I ran into the woods, the more lost I felt. Each turn brought me back to familiar landmarks: the old stone altar, the strangely shaped tree, the gnarled roots that twisted up from the earth like skeletal fingers. It was maddening. It was as if the woods themselves were taunting me, playing some cruel game. When I tripped. I crashed to the ground, pain exploding in my ankle as I twisted it. I lay there gasping for breath, the forest pressing in around me. Shadows shifted, and I couldn't tell if it was just my mind playing tricks or if something was truly watching from the dark. That I gritted my teeth, forcing myself to stand again. I limped forward, hoping against hope that I could find a way out. But the growl returned, closer, menacing. This time, I didn't hesitate to scream. No one would hear me, of that I was certain. The chaotic thoughts in my head screamed louder than my voice ever could. Suddenly, I spotted a glimmer of light through the trees, flickering softly like a candle's flame. Hope sparked within me. I stumbled toward it, desperate to reach some semblance of safety. But as I got closer, the light dimmed and flickered out completely. In that instant, despair settled in my chest, a shift of energy that warned me. I wasn't alone anymore. Then everything went dark again. When I came to again, my limbs felt heavy, like my body was made of lead. I blinked against the darkness, but I couldn't see anything, not the ground, not the trees, not even the stars above. Panic clawed at my throat. I forced myself to calm down. I had to be somewhere. I shifted, trying to find stability in the darkness. My fingers brushed against something cold and hard. A rock? A root? I pressed my hand down, searching for a clearer surface. It was a small stone, engraved with the same symbols as the charm I still held. My heart raced. How the hell did it end up here? Had it fallen from the altar somehow? Or was it left for me? Then I heard it again, the growl, low and rumbling. It raised the hairs on the back of my neck. I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat growing. Fear shot through me, faster than a spark in dry tinder. My legs screamed at me in pain with every movement, but I couldn't stay still. I needed to find a way out. So I crawled, dragging myself through the damp underbrush. The ground felt alive, slithering and shifting beneath my touch, and every rustle made me freeze. I couldn't tell if the noises were from wild animals or if it was the thing that hunted me. The growl echoed again, closer, a sinister promise that made me push forward even harder. Then I hit something solid. A tree trunk, rough and sturdy. I pressed against it, my heart racing as I tried to gather my thoughts. I needed a plan. But every second spent standing still felt like a trap. The growl rolled through the trees again, echoing closer still, a spectral alarm that sent fresh adrenaline coursing through my veins. I turned to my left, and there it was again, the hint of light, faint but persistent. What if it was an illusion? What if it led deeper into the woods? But I had to take that chance. I stumbled toward the flicker, hoping it wouldn't disappear again. My breath was ragged, wrists trembling as I clutched the charm tighter for strength. The light faded in and out, like a heartbeat, but I could have sworn it was brighter now. I approached cautiously, my mind racing. Maybe it was the way out. Maybe it would lead me home. I reached the edge of the clearing, and my heart sank. The light was coming from the same altar I had just fled. The symbols on the stone glowed softly, pulsating in time with the charm in my hand. That familiar hum called to me, and everything in me screamed not to approach. But something inside me wanted to answer. Just as I stepped closer, a voice broke through the tension. "You shouldn't be here." It was a whisper, sharp and urgent, but I couldn't see who it belonged to. It echoed in my ears, filling the space with dread. Before I could respond, the growl returned, deeper and more resonant, like a warning too late. A shadow shifted behind me, and the realization came crashing down. Whatever had been hunting me was now ready to strike. I turned to run, but something snagged the back of my shirt. I felt a pull, a cold grip closing in on me. I was not getting away this time. That was when I saw it. Something emerged from the darkness, tall and twisted, its eyes glowing like embers. I froze, my mind racing. The figure was towering and grotesque, impossibly long arms hanging at its sides. Each joint seemed wrong, contorted in ways that made my stomach turn. Its eyes glimmered with a malevolence that sent a chill through me. I tried to pull away from the grip on my shirt, but it tightened, dragging me closer. "Help!" I screamed, my voice echoing in the stillness. But there was no one. Just the growl that now sounded more like laughter, deep and reverberating. In a sudden burst of adrenaline, I twisted out of the hold. The fabric ripped, leaving me stumbling back against the altar. I glanced at the symbols on the stone, glowing brighter, almost pulsating with a life of their own. They were beckoning. I couldn't think clearly, only instinct drove me. I reached for the charm in my hand, hoping it would provide the same protection it had before. But in that moment, my focus shifted back to the creature. It lifted its head, revealing a mouth filled with jagged teeth, half hidden in shadows. "Do you desire power?" It hissed, its voice slithering through the air like smoke. "What?" "No." I shouted back, my heart racing. Power? What did it mean? I had to get out. But the altar loomed behind me, and the glow was hypnotic, drawing me in. Something told me I was teetering on the edge of a dangerous temptation. The creature stepped closer, and the ground beneath me felt unstable, as if the earth was shifting to swallow me. I darted to the right, hoping to slip past it and escape. But it turned, its movements fluid and graceful despite its size. Then I saw something glinting next to the altar, a dagger, its blade sharp and bright against the stone. Maybe I could defend myself. I lunged forward, reaching for it, but the creature was faster. It lunged toward me, hissing, and I felt its breath on my neck, hot and rancid. I grasped the handle just in time, yanking it free. The weight felt reassuring in my hand, but I had no idea how to fight something like this. My heart thundered, a mix of fear and desperation. "Leave me alone!" I screamed, brandishing the dagger. The creature paused, and the air grew heavy with tension. It had stopped moving, but its eyes burned brighter, gleaming with an unsettling curiosity. "Take your place," it cooed, almost sweetly, as if mocking me. "Join us." A pulse of energy surged through the dagger, and I felt it resonate with my charm. I couldn't understand why, but I could sense the connection, a promise of power that filled my veins with warmth. But at what cost? Before I could think it through, I turned and ran, the dagger clutched tight against my chest. The woods blurred around me as I sprinted, dodging branches and roots. The growl followed, more furious than ever, urging me to slow down and rethink my choices. I couldn't allow myself to be caught again. Just then, I stumbled into another clearing. This one was different, pulled into sharp focus by the light of a full moon overhead. The shadows flickered, and beneath them, something moved. I could barely make out figures standing in a circle. They were watching me, eyes wide and eerily calm. With dread, I realized the symbols from the altar were etched into the ground around them, pulsating at a rhythm that matched my heart. I took a step back, feeling the weight of the dagger in my hand. Not just hunted, I was somehow part of this nightmare. And in that moment of horrified understanding, I saw the faces of those watching me. Each one held a piece of the dark history I hadn't known I was tied to. "Welcome," one of them said, the same whisper I had heard before. I felt the ground tilt beneath me as my breath quickened. This was far from over. I had just stumbled into something far more sinister. I stood there, dagger in hand, feeling completely out of my depth. The figures in front of me seemed oddly serene. Their gazes were fixed, unblinking, almost hypnotic. One of them took a slow step forward. A woman, dressed in tattered clothes that looked like they had been part of another time entirely. Her pale skin glowed in the moonlight. I felt the dagger tremble in my grasp. "Why are you doing this?" I croaked out, my voice cracking. "Doing this?" She echoed, as if amused. "We're just waiting for you." Her words made my stomach twist. "Waiting for me? For what?" "Your choice, of course," she replied, gesturing to the ground beneath her feet, where the symbols glowed. "Join us, and feel the true power of the land." The others murmured in agreement, a low hum that echoed like a chant, filling the air with a tight, suffocating energy. I could feel the heat rising from the cymbals, pulling at me, urging me to step forward. No! I don't want any part of this. I screamed out, feeling panicked. My feet were rooted in place, as if the very ground bought into their promise of power. I took a deep breath and tried to focus. There had to be a way out. With a burst of determination, I scanned the area for an escape route. The trees flanked me, their dense trunks casting deep shadows. If I could make it back into the woods, find a way to break this spell, I could run. But, I couldn't leave without knowing more. Tell me what power means to you. I shouted, trying to regain some control. This isn't what I signed up for. The woman's expression shifted, her calmness replaced by a hint of irritation. You think you have a choice? You already took the dagger. That binds you to us now. I nearly dropped the weapon at her words. It was true. I had taken it without understanding the weight of that action. A low growl echoed behind me, and I spun around. The creature loomed just out of sight, but I could feel its presence, still yearning to close that distance. Your fate is tied to our fate, she continued, you can either fight it or embrace it. I tightened my grip around the dagger, feeling the surge of energy once again, but this time it felt darker, almost seductive. Embrace it? I whispered. What does that even mean? And that S when I saw it, a flare of movement in the shadowed trees. A figure emerged, not like the others. This one was familiar. My breath caught in my throat as realization hit. It was Sam, my friend who had gone missing weeks ago during a camping trip. Sam! I shouted, rushing toward him, but he stepped back, eyes wide, a mixture of fear and recognition. Don't! He warned, pointing to the circle. You don't know what you're walking into. I halted, torn between my urge to help him and the demands of the group. Sam's pale face flashed before me, reminding me of everything I thought I'd lost. But his warning echoed louder than the whispers surrounding me. Then, everything went dark. When I woke again, I was lying on solid ground, not the earth but wood. A table? Somehow, I knew I was inside a structure. It was dimly lit by flickering candles, their flames dancing cast shadows that twisted into nightmarish shapes on the walls. Confusion clouded my mind as I struggled to sit up, glancing around my surroundings. There were no figures here, no signs of the cult or the beast that had chased me. But I could still feel their influence lingering in the air, like a thick fog that settled in my lungs. Anxiety clawed at my insides. Then, I spotted something on the wall, a mirror. My reflection was strangely distorted, reminding me of the creature from before, its features too sharp and angles wrong. I shook my head, taking a step back, but the distorted version of myself seemed to tilt as if it was laughing, mocking me. Then, the whimper of a familiar voice pulled me back to reality. I faced the door to find Sam standing there, looking more disheveled than I had ever seen him. You're awake. He rushed in, urgency in his expression. I thought we lost you. Lost me? What's happening? I demanded, my panic setting in again. The cult, the creature. Where are they? We're safe for now, he said urgently, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting shadows to follow. The way his eyes darted made me uneasy. They can't find us here, but they'll know eventually that you're gone. Gone where? My voice shook. What do you know? I was one of them, just like you almost were. You have to understand. The power they talked about? It's real. But it comes at a cost. Cost? What do you mean? I stammered, the recollection of the dagger gripping my heart. The connection I felt to it made my skin crawl. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. They take your will, your soul. Whatever you gain, you lose yourself in the process. Once you join them, there's no going back. But I didn't join. I said defensively. The weight of the dagger felt heavy on my hip, as if it were cackling at me in the silence. You have it, don't you? You're bound to them now. Sam's face was grave. I looked at him, desperate for clarity. How do we stop it? I don't want any part of it. There's an old ritual, he replied quickly. It can sever the bond, but it requires both of us, your blood, my blood. We can end this. I just need you to trust me. It's not just my blood. You don't understand what there's no time. He interrupted, intensity flaring in his eyes. They'll come searching. We have to finish this before they find you again. Otherwise, it'll be too late. Before I could respond, a low rumble vibrated through the room, rattling the candles. Sam's eyes widened as he reached for my arm, pulling me toward the door. We need to go now. We darted through the narrow corridor, Sam guiding me through twisting hallways that felt disorienting. Every corner led to whispers, shadows flickering on the walls like shadows of what once may have been. The atmosphere thickened, and I could almost hear them, the whispers calling my name, taunting me. Stay close. Sam urged, tugging me to a massive wooden door at the end of the hallway. He shoved it open, and a fresh wave of air greeted us, thick with the scent of damp earth. We're almost there. Through the door lay an open expanse, a dilapidated ritual site, marked once again with those same symbols etched into the ground. I paused, heart beating wildly in my chest. This is it. Sam took a deep breath. We need to initiate the ritual before he could finish, a low growl echoed through the trees ringing the clearing, vibrating with a sense of urgency. I felt it in my bones. Whatever had hunted me before was searching for me again. That I grabbed Sam's arm. We don't have time. The growl erupted into a piercing howl, reverberating through my chest. It was a sound full of rage and hunger, propelling me to the altar. My heart raced as I recognized the dagger slipped into my other hand. Do it! Sam shouted, pulling me closer. That I stood before the altar, the symbols glowing ominously, pulsing beneath my feet. My breath hitched as I felt the presence closing in around me. Cut your palm. Sam instructed, urgency permeating his voice. As I pressed the blade against my skin, adrenaline surged, and I opened the palm of my hand. A drop of blood splattered onto the altar, followed closely by Sam's. The moment our blood touched the stones, a flash of light shot through the clearing, illuminating everything in an ethereal glow. I stumbled back, and suddenly, shadows swirled around us violently, coalescing into the form of that creature, elongated and horrifying. Join us! It bellowed, as if trying to breach the barrier we had created with our blood. My pulse raced as I felt the dagger throb in my grasp, urging me to accept my fate. No! I shouted, summoning every bit of will. The dagger emitted a bright light, pain slicing through my palm as it burned. The symbols on the altar blazed fiercely, and the creature screeched, twisting in agony. Keep your focus. Sam screamed, squeezing my shoulder. Before I could fully comprehend, the shadows surged, overwhelming the clearing, choking the breath from my lungs. It was as if the very air conspired against us, a final desperate attempt to keep us tethered to their dark purpose, but in that moment, a surge of energy filled the space, as if the dagger had linked to every ounce of power in the land. I clenched my jaw and forced my voice to rise against the cacophony. This ends now. With one sharp movement, I plunged the dagger into the altar. A shockwave rippled outward, dispersing the dark presence around us. The creature howled with rage, thrashing wildly as it was pulled back into the shadows, light absorbing all traces of its existence. In the aftermath, an eerie calm settled over the clearing, and I collapsed to my knees, panting. Sam hurried over, helping me stand. Did it work? I whispered, eyes scanning the darkened woods. I think so, he replied, disbelief tinged in his voice. But we can't stay. This place holds memories of what's gone. We can't. But suddenly, a lingering chill crept through the air, and deep shadows crept back, swirling around us like fog. "Let us move," I urged, my heart racing again. The air shifted, and for a moment, I could almost feel a presence, echoing in the trees behind us, those whispers clawing at my mind, questions that lingered that we ran, not daring to look back. The trees blurred around us, each shadow a reminder of the thin line between truth and terror, but as we escaped into the twisted paths of the forest, I couldn't shake the disquiet gnawing at my core. What exactly had we sealed away? I still didn't know if that creature was the source of our terror or simply a reflection of the darkness each soul carried. The woods might let me go, but they held secrets that may never fully fade. As we broke free onto familiar ground, the horizon stretched wide, inviting dawn and change. But I could still feel their whispers in the depths of the trees, a haunting reminder of the shadows we faced, and the questions left unanswered in the heart of the wilderness. That I moved to a different city afterward, but I often wonder about what lurks in those dark corners of the forest. Whether it was supernatural or just a figment of my restless mind, the memory lingers. I try not to think about it too much, but some nights, when the wind howls just right, I can still hear those whispers calling.